Hey everybody, welcome to Profiling Evil. In this video on ritual murder, who is Lori Vallow Daybell? I'm Mike King, and I recorded this video after receiving a number of emails from folks like you asking for a Cliff's Notes version of the Daybell murder case. This thing has so many interesting twists and turns that mirror many of the behaviors that I've witnessed in cults and closed societies. So if you'd like to learn more about cult recruiting and control techniques, pick up my book, Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. You can find it on Amazon or at profilingevil.com. So once again, thanks for the recommendation. It's challenging to condense Lori Vallow Daybell's lifetime into an interesting, decision-making, yet short, informative video, but let's give it a try, should we? I hope that we hit the mark for you, and I hope you'll take a moment, hit the like and the subscribe button, and ring the bell. Thanks for your support. So let's get started. Lori Noreen Cox, Yanes, Lagiola, Ryan, Vallow Daybell had been through 3 marriages. She was in the process of destroying her 4th by the time she heard the name Chad Daybell, and then later heard him preaching his wacky doctrine. Let's step back just a little bit, though. She was born in 1973 in San Bernardino, California. Now, it appears from court documents that Lori's father suffered from schizophrenia. Her sister suffered from mental health issues, according to her husband's deposition, and she ultimately would die from complications of diabetes. Their daughter would marry a young man who narrowly escaped murder attempts on his life, allegedly orchestrated by Lori Vallow. Well, after graduation, Lori married her high school sweetheart, Nelson Yanes, but the marriage only lasted a few short months. Shortly after, she fell in love with and married William Lagiola of Texas. The marriage just didn't last. Now, it did produce a son who I have come to believe is really a pretty darn sharp kid, especially given what he's grown up watching. I'm really proud of this kid. He's had such a tremendous load on his shoulders. Well, once again, Lori went out and found a new bull, Joseph Ryan. I can only assume it was love, or perhaps she was just simply looking for someone who could sustain this lifestyle she was coming accustomed to. But regardless, she and Ryan married. The couple added the new baby girl to their marriage, a child who would become another murder victim of this ritual murder case. You know that child as Tylee Ryan. As their marriage crumbled, Lori would accuse Ryan of abusing their children. Now, it's unknown whether there's truth in this or not, but Ryan would also share his own stories of Lori's bizarre behavior. You know, it was during this chapter of her story that another prominent person emerged in Lori's history. It's her brother, Alex. Alexander Cox was Lori's protector. It's unclear why Lori had such power and control over Alex, but one thing is evident. Whatever Lori told Alex to do, he did. It was shortly after Lori and Joe's marriage fell apart that we find the first public record of a violent act against someone associated with Lori. Joseph Ryan was attacked by Alex Cox, who assaulted him with a taser while threatening to murder him. Ryan narrowly escaped, but ended up in the hospital with some heart issues and a broken wrist. That was back in August of 2007. Ryan was actually walking to his car when Cox approached him. Ryan had just completed a supervised visit with his daughter Tylee after all the custody and everything else going on. Cox was there waiting for him. Cox asked Ryan if he knew who he was before he pulled out a stun gun and shot him in the shoulder. Ryan would later report that he thought Cox had a real gun, so he tried to run away from him. Well, Cox shot him a second time in the back with the stun gun, knocking him to the ground, and while there, threatening to kill him. Ryan was able to crawl away, and he was actually rescued by an eyewitness who watched Cox turn and run off. Cox was charged with aggravated assault. He pled guilty to the charge, and he was ordered to serve, get this, a whopping 90-day jail sentence. Can you imagine how different this story would have been if Cox could have been held longer? In fact, it was during his short stay in jail that Cox actually was reaching out to other inmates, attempting to get them to find Ryan and hurt him. Several years later, Ryan would die in what still remains a cloud of question. His daughter, Tylee, would get his Social Security following his death, but Lori would change the deposit information, eventually funneling the money into her own account. Well, with her third marriage behind her, Lori found a new love in Leland Anthony Vallow, a friendly former athlete who went by the name of Charles. Soon the pair married, and their family grew. Charles had 2 children of his own. Lori had 2 children, and soon the couple adopted Charles' grandnephew, Joshua Jackson, J.J. Vallow, a beautiful little boy who also had a developmental disorder. You know, Charles would describe the marriage as healthy and great, but then he started seeing this serious mental health change in Lori. It was during that time in which Lori was becoming obsessed with Chad Daybell and this group of like-minded doomsday believers. Well, before long, Lori had orchestrated a way to meet Chad Daybell, and almost instantly, their secret love affair with each other and their bizarre religious pursuits began. Before long, Daybell started having visions that he and Lori were destined to be together. He promised her godhood at his side, and he told her how special she was. She loved the idea of more power and control, and she added fuel to the fire, telling Daybell that she believed he was a prophet of sorts. They believed they had been married 7 times before, in 7 different lifetimes. The more they fed off each other, the more delusional their ideas became. And then they came to the opinion that in order for them to marry, their spouses would have to die. That way, Chad's prophecy could be fulfilled, bringing them together as husband and wife to co-lead this growing group of followers that they had. Well, it was November of 2018 when Lori hatched the plan that Charles Vallow, her estranged husband, should die. Before long, she had enlisted the help of her brother, Alex Cox, and a plan was set in motion. Charles was completely unaware, and while he had filed for divorce at one point, he withdrew the legal action in hopes of saving his marriage. It was about then that he learned that Lori and Chad were having an affair. Still hoping he could save their marriage, Charles tried to get family members to help him with an intervention with Lori. His plan was to get Lori some mental health counseling for her growing religious fanaticism. Well, little did he know that she and Alex had already set a plan in motion that would take his life. It was July 11th, 2019, when Charles was shot and killed by Alex Cox. Evidence would show that he was executed as he arrived at Lori's home to take his son JJ to school. Lori would leave with the kids and get breakfast while Alex sat with the dead or dying Charles in the home. Their plan worked perfectly in the beginning, and the shooting was ruled justifiable since Alex said that Charles had assaulted him with a bat. Well, within days, Lori was trying to get Charles life insurance, and she was thrown into a fit of rage when she learned during the period of separation that Charles had actually changed the beneficiaries to exclude Lori. She wouldn't get the financial windfall that she was hoping for. Instead, she packed up and moved to Rexburg, Idaho, shortly after Charles' death, and she secretly continued her affair with Chad Daybell. With the successful fulfillment of Chad's revelation in Charles's death, the next course of business was simply Tammy Daybell's death. A plan was put into motion, and while they waited, it somehow became necessary to eliminate Tylee Ryan and Joshua Vallow. Man, I've wondered why. Did these kids witness the murder of Charles Vallow? Was Tylee, the 16-year-old, pushing and resisting her mother's efforts to control her a little too much, Did she fear she might go to police? Well, whatever the reason, the children had become a liability, and Lori could only think of one way to fix things: murder. Within days of their arrival in Idaho, Alex Cox moved into the area as well. And on September 8th, 2019, Lori Vallow and Alex Cox took Joshua and Tylee on a trip to nearby Yellowstone National Park. The family took photographs of them all together, smiling and happy. They were captured on CCTV walking around the hot pots. It was perfect. Well, the following day, Tylee was gone. Lori's friends asked her where Tylee was, and she just simply said she'd gone away to college. Who buys this? A 16-year-old going away to college? Come on. Yet nobody reported it as suspicious. Well, 15 days later, Joshua would disappear, and the stories and the lies started piling up. It would take 16 days until October 9th, when Tammy Daybell reports that someone shot at her in her driveway. That case was downplayed by police even as just a prank. Even Tammy couldn't believe that the gun was real, but it was clear that a man in a mask snuck up behind her as she exited her car in the driveway and fired a handgun several times at her before running away. Mysteriously, 10 days later, Chad Daybell would report that his loving wife, Tammy, died in her sleep. And with that, Chad and Lori ensured that Chad's prophecy was fulfilled. 17 days after Tammy Daybell's unexpected death, Chad and Lori Vallow become husband and wife on the tropical island of Kauai, Hawaii. Does anybody find it odd that 15 days after Tylee died, Joshua dies? Then 16 days after Joshua died, Tammy Daybell dies. And then 17 days after Tammy Daybell dies, Chad and Lori marry. Now, I'm not sure what event I'm missing here, but then 20 days after Chad and Lori Daybell get married, Alex Cox marries Zulema Pastenas in a Las Vegas wedding chapel. Cox does something a little weird. He takes on Pastena's last name as his own, and now a paper trail could begin to disappear. They moved to Arizona, and then 12 days later, Alex Cox is reported dead. Cause of death? Presumably blood clots, according to the ME report. 2 months later, Lori would be arrested in Hawaii and extradited back to Idaho to face charges related to her missing children. Chad would fly home to support her in court, but on June 9th, 2020, he too would be placed under arrest after police investigators discover the decomposed bodies of J.J. Vallow and his sister Tylee Ryan in Chad Daybell's backyard pet cemetery. Well, as the Daybells sat in jail, law enforcement exhumed Tammy Daybell's body and performed an autopsy. Now, the results have remained sealed, but in May of 2021, Chad and Lori Daybell were formally charged with the murder deaths of J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Chad's former wife, Tammy Daybell. The indictments cited that Lori Daybell did, quote, endorse and espouse religious beliefs for the purpose of encouraging and justifying the homicides of Tylee, Joshua, and Tammy, close quote. While Chad sits in an Idaho jail awaiting jury trial for murder, Lori enters a mental health hospital as the state of Idaho tries to restore her mental competency so she too can be tried in the death of her children and her husband's former wife. But that's not all there is to her story. Her troubles are just beginning. Recently, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office announced that she had been indicted for the death of her deceased husband, charging her with conspiracy to commit murder. They cite Alex Cox as well. Well, as soon as Lori Daybell completes the criminal proceedings against her in Idaho, she'll face new murder charges in Maricopa County. And that may not be the end of things. Perhaps charges in Alex Cox's death and the death of Joseph Ryan may follow. Well, I hope this ritual murder, Who is Lori Daybell video helps you understand who Lori Daybell is and what pathway she took toward her pending murder trials. Please like and subscribe to Profiling Evil and make sure that you ring the bell so that you get the notifications on other videos like this. Please consider sharing this with your friends and contacts. And I hope you'll watch for my new podcast on the Zion Society cult coming out next month. We're really excited about it, and I think you'll like the special effort the team has put into making it informative and entertaining. Make sure you check out the Daybell ritual murder timeline we've created. You can find the link for that below, or you can get it in the Daybell story map at profilingevil.com. Now, here's my question for you. Do you think Lori Vallow would have participated in the murders of Charles, JJ, Tylee, and Tammy if she never had met Chad Daybell in the first place? I'm looking forward to reading your answers below, and thanks again for your support of Profiling Evil. If you'd like to learn more about the Daybell ritual murder case, check out our YouTube Daybell playlist, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.